G'day folks, here we are at the end of turn 6. This is the end of the PM turn on the third day, the 18th of December. Well, the US front line has just been absolutely shattered. There is no front line anymore. There are reinforcements rushing in on these trucks. They're going to get hurt by the Germans. The Germans have the next turn, but God, they need to stop their advance. So you've got the airborne units just rushing up in their trucks, trying to occupy these crossroad locations. German armoured units in the vicinity, but what else can they do? You've still got this pocket of Americans down here, just a couple of steps left, trying to break out here. You can see where they engaged the Germans in this area. Had pretty good odds, but just didn't roll very well in the combat. The Germans moving through, of course, because they've got this little passageway through here, this primary road, so they're moving through here, bit of a traffic jam, and some Americans up here, stopping them short. What else? Okay, so first SS Panzer Corps trying to shift through here. They are being slowed down a little bit. PM turns are always a bit slower. The AM turns are where the breakthrough occurs. PM turns are almost like a consolidation. All the units kind of catch up. So the PM turn was pretty quiet. What else is happening? Very slow advance, largely because the Americans are pulling back away from here. You can see trying to get away from this wooded area and towards the north. Most of their reinforcements and available forces are trying to withdraw and then push around the edges, the north edges here. So you can see some strategic movement taking place where these armoured units are trying to move rapidly around and get towards Hoffelaise and Bastogne. The Germans have captured Hoffelaise down here, and in doing so, they've kind of pocketed two more American units in this area. They were kind of caught out in this rough terrain, and Germans were able to use the roads to the south and north to surround them, force a retreat into Hoffelaise, and secure these ZOC bonds, which is going to make, I think this actually locks these Americans into an out of supply situation. These guys weren't out of supply. I double checked that at the end of last turn. They did have a little narrow corridor through which they could pass. So they were okay, but I think now they are out of supply, and I haven't done their, I need to check for isolation as well. I haven't done that yet. St. Vith finally fell very narrowly, but it did, which opens up another series of opportunities for all these 66 core units in this area. There's actually a bit of a mix of units here. Where do they want to go? Do they want to focus on this pocket or just drive towards Bastogne and Hoffelaise? Look, my feeling is that the Americans are certainly in trouble. They have no frontline defense. Around here, they're kind of doing pretty well. They're doing okay, not pretty well. They're doing okay to slow the Germans down. A lot of good defensive positions here, but there's nothing here. There's these two units on the southern side of Bastogne, and then disordered units. Actually, they would have rallied disorder. Two defense factors plus 2 doesn't give them much. Out to the south, things are going really bad. I've rushed a lot of these airborne units down here to try and protect the flanks, because although this is relatively slow-moving German infantry, every time they occupy these entry hexes, the Americans have to divert reinforcements. That's the rule that I've followed up on. So you can see just off camera down here, these very powerful American armoured reinforcements are forced to block these. I think it's called occupy the Germans to that's the effect of the Germans pushing in the Americans out of their flanks. Look, artillery, some of the German artillery did catch up. Where did I get some artillery fire? Oh, actually, it was way down here on St. Vith. A lot of it moving up here. You can see the prime movers here and some prime movers there. So some German artillery pretty close to the front now. A lot of it's still way behind the lines down here, which hasn't moved at all, or fired since the first turn pretty much. So yeah, very worried about the Americans. Keep in mind, this is only the third day. It's turn 6 of a 22 turn sort of campaign. So we're about not even a third of the way through yet. But I'm just worried about the mass of American casualties. I mentioned in the very first video that the Germans wanted to focus on inflicting losses on the Americans. It's not enough to force them to retreat. We want to surround and eliminate. And they've very much done that. That's what scares me for the Americans. They just don't have enough units to form a line, to defend areas. Whereas the Germans have suffered relatively low casualties. They've done well to advance without suffering losses, and they have just so many strong units that are just picking off the Americans one at a time. They're picking the weakest stacks or the weak defensive positions and forcing eliminations. Even here, where they have, the Americans have 8 defense factors plus 1, we'll give them 9. But next turn, the Germans can converge on there. All they need to do is force a DR2 result, even a firefight result, even an exchange result helps the Germans because, they are in a position now where they can attack with relatively low odds and force these casualties among the Americans. And the Americans just keep suffering these casualties and can't afford to do so much more. Even there's a big stack of American reinforcements arriving this turn. And they're just, you can see these are the turn 6 reinforcements. I think some of these were turn 6 reinforcements. Turn 6, running out of trucks for the Americans because the airborne had such a long way to go from the west end of the map. That's the story. Americans in trouble, scrambling for defensive positions, rushing in their trucks. I know they're going to suffer, but, well, it's either, it's a real tension between, okay, do I park the trucks, halfway up the map, or do I rush and try to slow the Germans down and wait for more reinforcements? There aren't a lot of American reinforcements. There's a small trickle coming on over the coming days. I'm very worried. But anyway, let's play through, and I'll report back, and we'll see what happens.